From a 40-year championship drought to making the finals 5 consecutive years, there's one player we look at for the rapid success of the Golden State Warriors, and that man goes by the name Stephen Curry. But how exactly did he change the franchise? Well, first we have to discuss the position the Warriors were in. Heading into the 2009 NBA draft, Golden State has seen just one playoff appearance in the last 15 seasons. With the 7th pick, obviously they were in search of a franchise player to change things, but had seen no success in doing so since the departure of the Run TMC trio back in the 90s. But funny enough, even Curry didn't originally want to be there. Steph and his agent Jeff Austin believed that New York would be a significantly better opportunity for him, as the Golden State Warriors already had another young guard by the name of Monte Ellis, who they felt would stunt Steph's growth. His father Del Curry would even go so far as to tell the Warriors head coach at the time, Don Nelson, not to select him at number 7, to which he replied with, "Well, if we get the opportunity, we're going to do it." And once that pick rolled around, the Warriors did exactly that, which left New York to instead select Jordan Hill out of Arizona, only to trade him 25 games into his rookie season. But as for Steph, his rookie year would be nothing short of spectacular. He averaged 17 points and nearly 6 assists, along with making 166 three-pointers. At the time, this set a rookie record for the most threes in a season, and he did so while shooting just under 44% from behind the arc. Hopes of what he could become were clearly there, and the kid showed some serious promise. But the one thing that could potentially hold Curry back would be the several ankle injuries he dealt with in his younger years. Starting in March of 2010, the next 2 years would see Steph roll his ankle on court more than a dozen times, and in April of 2012, he would undergo surgery on his right ankle. Despite the questions surrounding how stable his ankle would be going forward, the Warriors would go all in on Curry, trading Monte Ellis to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Andrew Bogut. This trade made it clear the Warriors were going to be building around Steph for the foreseeable future, with them signing him to a 4-year, $44 million contract in the same offseason. But while they'd had their star player decided, who would coach him would be the big question. In his rookie season, the Golden State Warriors were led by Don Nelson. In 2011, they'd replace him with Keith Smart, just for them to have another coach by 2013. But he would be the one to unlock Steph's hidden potential, that being Mark Jackson. Jackson was a firm believer in 3 is greater than 2, pushing both Steph and his second season teammate Klay Thompson to stretch the floor and to take advantage of shooting threes. And with the coach who believed in his abilities, Steph would have his best season yet, averaging 23 points and 7 assists, including a 54-point outing on February 27, 2013 versus the New York Knicks. This marks the night the name Stephen Curry became a known worldwide phenomenon, putting his name into the spotlight forever. By the end of this season, he'd have a total 272 three-pointers made, which would be the most in NBA history. He also helped end the Warriors' playoff drought this season, something Warriors fans had been begging for. While they'd lose to the San Antonio Spurs in the second round, the next season would be even better. In 2014, Steph would make his first All-Star Game appearance and receive All-NBA second-team honors. Yet another historical season was underway, with him once again doing things we'd never seen until now. For starters, he led the NBA again with 262 threes, becoming the first player since Ray Allen to lead the league in this category in consecutive seasons. In this same year, he became the Warriors' franchise leader in three-point makes, and I don't think anyone will touch this record anytime soon. But around this time, the Warriors will be replacing head coach Mark Jackson with Steve Kerr due to some issues within the organization. At the time, it seemed like a crazy change, but after giving Kerr the keys and letting him lead Golden State, it all began to make sense. With Kerr being a lights-out shooter back in his playing days, he understood the power of the three ball better than anyone else could. He also played under coaching legend Phil Jackson, before being mentored by another all-time legend in Greg Popovich. It would be hard to top Mark Jackson's last season at 51 wins. However, in 2015, Kerr would do just that, and he'd obliterate it with a 67-win season, in which Steph Curry will be taking home his first MVP award. But we have to give credit where it's due, not just to Klay Thompson, who made his first All-Star appearance this season, but also to Draymond Green, who finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. This Warriors core wasn't just talented, but very young at the same time. They'd of course take over the Western Conference this season and head to the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history since 1975. It'd been 40 years since the Bay Area tasted a championship, but they wouldn't be waiting for too much longer. against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were led by hometown legend LeBron James at the time, the Warriors definitely had a challenge on their hands. For the first time in NBA Finals history, we'd see the first 2 games of a series go to overtime. These 2 juggernauts will go at it, but it ultimately came down to the Warriors taking this year's battle in 6 games. But even with him winning his first championship, Steph would be scrutinized by the media for not winning the Finals MVP, something that'll haunt him for many years heading forward. And let's move forward to something else that'll haunt him for the rest of his life. The 2016 season is one of the craziest we'll ever see, and you can't tell the story without first mentioning Steph Curry. He became the first player to ever make 300 threes in a season, doing so with 402. His shooting ability is possibly the greatest skill in any sport the world's ever witnessed, and this would also be his first season to average 30 points. Once again, he's doing things only he can do, becoming the first player shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line while averaging 30 points or more. And to cap it all off, he led the Warriors to a historic 73-9 record, not just the best in Warriors history, but the most wins we've ever seen by a team in NBA history. This beat the record held by the 1996 Chicago Bulls, who went 72-10, which ironically enough, head coach Steph Curry was also a part of as a player. With all these accomplishments in just one season, Curry wouldn't just win his second MVP, but he's becoming the only player in the NBA to ever win this award unanimously. So after all these accolades, you're likely stuck wondering what's so haunting about this season. Well, if we fast forward to the 2016 NBA Finals, we're seeing a rematch of last year's Cavaliers and Warriors showdown. Only this time, things would be a little bit different. After the first 4 games, the Golden State Warriors held a 3-1 lead over the Cleveland Cavaliers and were just one more win for going back-to-back as NBA champions. But here's where things take a left turn for Steph and the entire Warriors team. During Game 4, Draymond Green will receive a flagrant 1 foul after getting into it with LeBron, and after his long history of being labeled a dirty player, he'd be suspended for Game 5 and also allegedly fined $129,000. Here's where the Cavs had a glimmer of hope, and they never looked back after. In Game 5, LeBron James and Kyrie returned up the heat, with both players scoring 41 to lead the Cavs to a 112-97 win over the Warriors. And even in Game 6, with Draymond back on the court, Cleveland already had the momentum in their favor at home. LeBron was scored 41 yet again, this time in a 115-101 win over the Golden State Warriors. The series would now be tied 3-3, and Game 7 would be played in the Oracle Arena, Oakland, California. Here you'd likely think the Warriors finally got it done, but that's where you couldn't be more wrong. In one of the most controversial games ever, featuring both the most iconic block in NBA history and the most impactful shot the world's ever seen, the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers will complete the first and only ever instance of a 3-1 comeback in NBA Finals history. So for the first time in his career, Steph would be the victim of being on the wrong side of history. But this would be a blessing in disguise, with the Golden State Warriors signing free agent Kevin Durant to the team just a month later. Adding an MVP to what was already possibly the greatest team of all time just added more salt to the wound, and overnight the Warriors would go from the league's most beloved team in the world to the most hated team ever. Everyone's rooting against them, hoping some lucky team or player can stop them from winning a championship. But hope is all there would be, not only seeing them win the 2017 NBA Finals, but also repeating in 2018. KD truly made this team unbeatable, but he also beat out Steph to win both Finals MVPs. This gave Steph 3 titles, with no Finals MVPs to show for it. This was one of the very few flaws in his resume, and the media, critics, and haters alike would let him know about it. He's suffering from success, and overnight went from the NBA's angel to a villain. Things had gotten a little bit too easy for the Warriors, but they're about to face a harsh reality check. While they would win 57 games in the 2019 NBA season, the pieces were already starting to crumble. In November, after a loss to the LA Clippers, KD and Draymond would go at it about who should have taken the last shot. While at the time this seemed like a typical teammate argument after a heated loss, Durant says the Warriors handled the situation completely wrong. This would make KD begin to isolate himself from the rest of the team, but in the grand scheme of things, they were still the best team in the league. However, that's just the beginning, because when the playoffs rolled around, KD would miss a lot of time due to a right calf strain. Without him though, the Warriors would still make the NBA Finals for the 5th consecutive time, where they're up against the Toronto Raptors. This series would sway 3-1 in favor of the Raptors, where Kevin Durant had missed 9 consecutive games before due to injury. In hopes to save their season and complete a three-peat, he'd rush back in Game 5 to try to steer the pot. However, just 2 minutes into the second quarter, he'd go down with an Achilles tear, marking the end of his season for good. At least the Warriors won this game though, with them now being down just 3-2 in the series with some hope still remaining. But in the following game, the injury bug would be right back, this time taking a bite at Klay Thompson. In the late third quarter, he'd go up for a fast break layup before getting sat down by Danny Green, tearing his ACL in the process. The Warriors were officially done, losing this game, marking the end of the Durant-era Warriors, and giving Toronto their first Major League Sports championship of the 21st century. This would be a movie-like way to cap off their historic dynasty run, and it's around this time where the Warriors will begin to pay back some of their NBA karma. Klay Thompson would be sidelined for the entire 2020 NBA season, and just 4 games into the new year, Steph Curry would also break his left hand, sidelining him as well. The Warriors would win just 15 games this year and be one of the worst teams in all of basketball, instantly going from 5-time defending Western Conference champions to the bottom team in the bracket was certainly a humbling experience. But thankfully enough for Warriors fans, in 2021 things would start to get back to normal. Steph would see the court for 63 games, with him scoring an average of 32 points on a night. This includes a career-high game in January, putting up 62 points against the Portland Trail Blazers. This would be enough for him to win another scoring title, and clearly he was a man on a mission. Despite not even making the playoffs, losing to LeBron in LA in the play-in tournament, Curry finished as one of 3 finalists for the MVP award, showing just how spectacular of a season he was having. But the one award he still didn't have to this point would be a Finals MVP, something he's been craving since his first title. In the 2022 season though, the Golden State Warriors are getting back to the team we've known them as during the Steph Curry era. Klay Thompson will be making his return, as well as young talent Jordan Poole having his breakout season. Everything was beginning to make sense again in Golden State, and Steph will be leading the way, making history yet again. On December 14, 2021, Steph would nail 5 threes against the New York Knicks to surpass Ray Allen and become the NBA's all-time three-point makes leader. Despite being out the playoffs the past 2 seasons, this postseason would be a bit different. With a 53-29 record, the Warriors finished 3rd in the West, where they'd once again reign victorious over teams like the Denver Nuggets, Memphis Grizzlies, and Dallas Mavericks. This would make them now 6-time West champions over an 8-year span, as under Steve Kerr, the Warriors had never lost a playoff series in the Western Conference. The last team standing in their path would be the Boston Celtics, led by Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart. On paper, this Celtics team had a number on the Warriors, but the one thing Golden State had more than them was experience, something that would decide this year's NBA Finals. And finally, after 4 championships, Steph finally got the Finals MVP award he's been yearning for. But after their last title, their story has a steep decline. In the offseason following their title run, Draymond Green and Jordan Poole would get into a fight at a team practice. Here Poole can be seen shoving Draymond before he retaliates with a punch to the face. Right after a championship, their chemistry had been ruined in an instant, and while they would go on to make the playoffs and even beat the 3rd-seeded Kings in the first round, in the following series they yet again get sent home by LeBron in LA, which marks their first time losing to a Western Conference opponent in the playoffs since 2014. Obviously, this shaky season would be attributed to locker room beefs, and the Warriors were forced to make a decision. They'd have to either stick with their past or decide on the future, and they stick alongside Draymond, sending Jordan Poole to the Washington Wizards in exchange for a 38-year-old Chris Paul who'd only averaged 9 points and 7 assists in his single season as a Warrior. Nothing notable would come out of this season, but in the following offseason, the entire dynamic of the Bay Area would take a shift. Klay Thompson would be leaving the Golden State Warriors, marking the end of an era, disassembling the Splash Bros duo, and winding down one of the greatest dynasties sports has ever seen. And while as of right now it doesn't seem as if he'll win another championship, one more thing Steph Curry's accomplished is becoming the only player to ever reach 4,000 threes. And he did so on March 13th, 2025, a day before his 37th birthday. There's no telling what the closing chapter of Steph's career will look like, but I can tell you that the future of this channel will include many more sports documentaries, so make sure you subscribe to not miss any future uploads like this one.